Jake Morrison woke up early that morning on Kepler Prime Station. The space station was huge and cold, with metal walls and bright lights everywhere. He had been living there for 3 weeks now, trying to make peace between Earth and the alien. Races in the Galactic Council. His daughter Amy was still sleeping in the next room. She was only 12 years old, with brown hair and bright green eyes. Jake had brought her on this trip because his wife had died 2 years ago, and he could not leave Amy alone on Earth. The girl was smart and curious about everything. She loved to ask questions about the aliens and their strange customs. Jake put on his blue diplomatic uniform and looked out the window at the stars. Earth was far away now, just a small dot of light. He missed home, but this meeting was important. The humans needed to keep good relations with the other species in the galaxy. Amy came into the room rubbing her eyes. She wore a simple white dress that her mother had bought her before she died. "Good morning, Dad," she said with a yawn. "Are you going to the big meeting today?" "Yes, sweetheart," Jake replied. "But you need to stay in our rooms while I'm gone. The aliens get nervous when humans bring children to their meetings." Amy nodded, but Jake could see she was disappointed. She wanted to see the council chambers where all the different alien species met. Jake had described them to her many times. There were the tall blue Altarians with their long arms and silver eyes, the small green Centaurians who spoke in musical voices, and the red-skinned Zephyrians with their sharp teeth and angry faces. Jake kissed his daughter goodbye and walked through the station's long corridors. Other diplomats from different worlds passed by him. Some nodded politely, but most ignored him. Humans were still new to the galactic community, and many aliens did not trust them. The council chambers were huge and round, with seats arranged in a circle. Each species had their own section, with special air and lighting for their needs. Jake took his place in the human section, which was small compared to the others. Only 5 humans were allowed in the council, while some alien species had 20 or more representatives. High Counselor Vexthara of the Zephyrian Empire stood up first. He was tall and thin, with dark red skin and yellow eyes that seemed to glow. His voice was deep and harsh when he spoke. "The human expansion into Sector 7 must stop immediately," he declared. "They are taking worlds that belong to older, more established species." Jake stood up to respond. "Earth has followed all the proper procedures," he said calmly. "We have only settled on worlds that were marked as uninhabited. We have not taken anything that belongs to other species." Vexthara's eyes flashed with anger. "Humans breed too quickly and spread too fast. You will overrun the galaxy if we do not stop you now." The argument went on for hours. Other alien delegates joined in, some supporting the humans and others agreeing with Vexthara. Jake tried to stay calm and reasonable, but he could feel the tension in the room growing stronger. Back in their quarters, Amy was getting bored. She had finished her homework and read 2 books. She drew pictures of the aliens her father had described, but she wanted to see them for herself. She knew her father had said to stay in the rooms, but she was curious about what the meeting looked like. Amy quietly opened the door and looked down the corridor. It was empty except for a few cleaning robots. She knew the way to the council chambers because her father had shown her the route yesterday. She decided to take just a quick look. The girl walked through the station's corridors, staying close to the walls. She passed other aliens in the hallways, but they paid no attention to one small human child. The station was busy with many different species going about their daily business. When Amy reached the council chambers, she could hear loud voices coming from inside. The meeting sounded angry and intense. She found a small viewing window and stood on her tiptoes to look inside. She could see her father standing in the human section, talking to the tall red alien who was shouting at him. The alien looked very angry, waving his long arms in the air. Amy felt worried for her father, but she knew he was good at his job. The argument was getting worse. Vexthara was now screaming about human expansion and threatening to use military force. Jake remained calm, but his hands were clenched into fists. He was trying hard not to lose his temper. The Zephyrian Empire will not tolerate this human. Invasion, Vexthara shouted. We have been in this galaxy for thousands of years. We will not be pushed aside by newcomers. No one is pushing anyone aside, Jake replied firmly. There is room in the galaxy for all of us. We just need to work together and respect each other's rights. At that moment, Amy decided she had heard enough. She was worried about her father, facing all these angry aliens alone. She pushed open the door to the council chambers and walked inside. Dad, she called out in her clear young voice. Are you okay? It's almost lunchtime. The entire chamber fell silent. All the alien delegates turned to look at the small human girl who had just entered their sacred meeting place. Amy felt hundreds of strange eyes looking at her, but she was not scared. She just wanted to make sure her father was safe. Jake's face went pale when he saw his daughter. Amy, what are you doing here? You need to go back to our rooms right now. But it was too late. Vexthara had seen the child, and his yellow eyes blazed with fury. A human child dares to enter our council chambers? He roared, This is a violation. Of all protocols, this is a security threat. She's just a child, Jake said, moving toward his daughter. She meant no harm. I'll take her back to our quarters immediately. But Vexthara was beyond reason. His anger at the humans had been building for months, and seeing this small girl in the council chambers was the final insult. He reached for his energy weapon, a device that all council members were allowed to carry for protection. No child of the human invaders should be allowed to live, he snarled. If you will not control your breeding, we will do it for you. Jake realized what was happening and ran toward his daughter. Amy, get down. He shouted, but the energy blast was faster. Then Jake could move. The bright blue beam hit Amy in the chest, and she fell to the floor without making a sound. The smell of burned flesh filled the air. Jake dropped to his knees beside his daughter's body. Amy's green eyes were open but empty. Her small chest was still. The white dress her mother had bought her was now stained with blood. Amy? Jake whispered, shaking her gently. Amy, please wake up. But his daughter was dead. The other alien delegates sat in shocked silence. Even those who disliked humans had not expected this. Chancellor Kremos of the Altarians spoke first. This was unfortunate, he said slowly, but High Counselor Vexthara was within his rights to defend the council chambers from unauthorized entry. Jake looked up at the alien who had just called his daughter's murder unfortunate. His grief was already turning into something much darker, something that would soon burn through the galaxy like fire. The meeting was over. Jake Morrison carried his dead daughter back to their quarters, and the galaxy would never be the same again. Jake Morrison arrived on Earth 3 days later, carrying a small metal box that contained his daughter's ashes. The spaceport was busy with normal life, but Jake felt like he was walking through a dream. People were laughing and talking, but he could not hear them. All he could think about was Amy's face when the energy blast hit her. The Earth government had already heard about what happened on Kepler Prime. President Linda Carter was waiting for Jake when he landed. She was a tall woman with gray hair and kind eyes, but today she looked very serious. Jake, she said softly, I'm sorry for your loss. Amy was a wonderful girl. Jake looked at her with empty eyes. They called it unfortunate, he said. They said the alien had the right to kill her because she walked into their meeting room. President Carter nodded. We've already recalled all our diplomats from Galactic Council space. We're cutting off all communication with them. That's not enough, Jake said. His voice was quiet, but filled with anger. They killed my daughter and called it justified. They need to pay for what they did. The president looked around the spaceport and then spoke quietly. Come with me, Jake. There are things about Earth that you need to know. Things that might help us get justice for Amy. They drove to a military base in the mountains. Jake had never seen this place before, even though he had high security clearance. The base was hidden deep underground, with tunnels that went down for miles. General Patricia Hayes was waiting for them in a conference room. She was a strong woman in her 50s with short black hair and steel-gray eyes. With her was Dr. Richard Stone, Earth's top scientist who studied alien life forms. Jake, General Hayes said, what I'm about to tell you is classified at the highest level. Only a few dozen people on Earth know this information. Dr. Stone opened a large file and spread out photographs and documents on the table. Jake, humanity, is not from Earth originally. We discovered this 20 years ago when we found ruins under the ice in Antarctica. Jake stared at the photographs. They showed huge metal structures buried in the ice, with symbols and writing that looked almost human, but not quite. These ruins are over 4,000 years old, Dr. Stone continued. They were built by a race called the Terrans, our ancestors. I don't understand, Jake said. If we're not from Earth, then where did we come from? General Hayes leaned forward. We came from the stars, Jake. Humans used to be the most powerful warrior race in the galaxy. We had an empire that controlled hundreds of worlds. Dr. Stone pulled out more documents. The alien species we know today, the Zephyrians, the Altarians, the Centaurians, they were all part of a coalition that fought against the Terran Empire. They were afraid of us because we were too good at war. But we lost? Jake asked. No. General Hayes said, we won. But the victory came at a terrible cost. The Terran Empire became so focused on war that it forgot about everything else. So the Terran leaders made a choice. They would exile themselves and their people to a distant world where they could learn to live in peace. Earth, Jake said. Yes. But the exile came with conditions. The Terrans agreed to have their warrior genes suppressed. They would become a peaceful species that could never again threaten the galaxy. Dr. Stone showed Jake more photographs. These genetic suppressors were built into our DNA. They make us weaker, slower, less intelligent than we should be. They also make us forget our true nature. Jake looked at the evidence spread across the table. So we've been living as prisoners. On our own planet. Not prisoners, General Hayes said. More like sleeping warriors. The genetic suppressors can be removed, but the process is dangerous and irreversible. What happens if we remove them? Jake asked. Dr. Stone exchanged a look with the general. We become what we used to be. We remember everything our ancestors knew about war, about technology, about fighting. We become the Terrans again. And then? Jake asked. Then we could make them pay for what they did to Amy, General Hayes said. The room was quiet for a long moment. Jake thought about his daughter's bright green eyes and her curious questions about the aliens. He thought about how they had dismissed her death as unfortunate. What do you need from me? He asked. Dr. Stone pulled out a blueprint of the Antarctic facility. We need someone to volunteer for the first transformation. Someone who understands what we're fighting for. The process is painful, General Hayes warned, and there's no going back. Once your Terran genes are activated, you'll never be the same person again. Jake looked at the metal box containing his daughter's ashes. I'm not the same person already, he said. Amy's death changed me. If this can help us get justice for her, then I'll do it. Over the next few days, more people were brought into the secret program. Captain Lisa Reynolds was a military pilot who had always felt like she was capable of more than her training allowed. Colonel Ben Carter was a strategic planner who sometimes had ideas. About battles he had never fought, Dr. Stone explained that many humans had been having these experiences. Dreams about strange weapons and alien worlds. Instinctive knowledge about fighting techniques they had never learned. These were genetic memories trying to break through the suppressors. The aliens have been watching us, Dr. Stone said. They've been making sure the suppressors stay strong. They put chemicals in our food, change our air, even use electromagnetic fields to keep us weak. But why? Captain Reynolds asked. If we were exiled 4,000 years ago, why are they still afraid of us? Because deep down, they know we're still the same species, General Hayes said. They know that if we ever remembered who we really are, we could take back everything they stole from us. The team traveled to Antarctica in secret. The facility was hidden under miles of ice, but it was still operational. Ancient Terran technology had been designed to last forever. Dr. Stone connected his computers to the alien machines. This technology is thousands of years ahead of what we have now. He said, it's like the difference between a stone axe and a spaceship. The first transformation chamber was a silver pod filled with strange liquids. Jake looked at it and felt a mix of fear and excitement. This could be the key to making the aliens pay for Amy's death. Are you ready? Dr. Stone asked. Jake nodded. What will happen to me? You'll remember everything, Dr. Stone said. Everything your ancestors knew about war, about technology, about the galaxy. You'll become the warrior you were always meant to be. Jake stepped into the pod and felt the liquid surrounding him. It was warm and tingly, like electricity running through his body. As the transformation began, he felt his mind expanding. Suddenly, he could remember things he had never experienced. Battles on distant worlds. Weapons that could destroy entire fleets. Strategies that had conquered civilizations. He remembered the real reason for the exile. The truth that the aliens had hidden from humanity. The Terrans had not been exiled because they were too violent. They had been exiled because they were too good at everything. They were better warriors, better scientists, better leaders. The other species could not compete with them. When Jake opened his eyes, he was different. His body was stronger, his mind was faster, and his heart was filled with a cold, calculating anger. He looked at the other humans in the facility and saw them as his fellow warriors, not just his friends. How do you feel? Dr. Stone asked. Jake smiled, but it was not a kind smile. I feel like I remember who I really am, he said. And I remember exactly how to make the aliens pay for what they did to Amy. The transformation was complete. Jake Morrison was no longer just a grieving father. He was a Terran warrior, and he was ready for war. Jake Morrison stepped out of the transformation chamber and immediately knew he was different. His body felt stronger and more alive than it had ever been. His mind was clear and sharp, filled with knowledge he had never learned, but somehow remembered. Doctor Stone was watching him carefully with his instruments. Jake, how do you feel? I feel like I've been asleep my whole life, Jake said. His voice was different now, more confident and commanding. I can remember things. Battle plans from wars fought thousands of years ago. Weapon designs that could destroy entire fleets. Captain Lisa Reynolds was next to undergo the transformation. She had always been a good pilot, but she had always felt like she was holding back, like her body and mind were capable of much more. Now she would find out if that feeling was right. As the transformation liquid surrounded her, Lisa felt her consciousness expanding. Suddenly she could remember flying spacecraft that had never been built on Earth. She knew how to fight in zero gravity, how to navigate by reading the energy patterns of stars, how to pilot ships through dimensions that humans had never discovered. When she opened her eyes, she looked at Jake with new understanding. We were never just humans, were we? She asked. No, Jake replied. We were Terrans, the most advanced warrior race the galaxy has ever known, and they made us forget. Colonel Ben Carter was the third to transform. He was a military strategist who had always been good at planning battles, but now he remembered strategies that had conquered entire star systems. He could see the weaknesses in every alien military formation, understand their psychology, predict their moves before they made them. "The Zephyrians," he said as he climbed out of the chamber. "I remember fighting them before. They're aggressive, but predictable. They always attack head-on because they think strength is everything. The Altarians are different," Jake added. "They're careful and logical. They plan everything in advance. But they're also cowards who avoid direct confrontation." Dr. Stone was amazed by what he was seeing. The genetic memories are stronger than we expected. You're not just remembering facts. You're remembering experiences as if you lived them yourselves. More humans began arriving at the Antarctic facility. They were military officers, scientists, and engineers who had been chosen for their potential. Each one underwent the transformation and emerged as something more than human. Lieutenant Kelly Brooks discovered she could understand alien languages without training. Sergeant Pete Murphy found he could repair technology he had never seen before. Engineer Nancy Foster could design weapons that existed only in ancient Terran blueprints. But the most important discovery came when Dr. Stone analyzed the facility's main computer. "This is incredible," he said. "The Terrans didn't just have advanced technology. They had a collective consciousness. Every Terran could access the knowledge and memories of every other Terran." Jake felt a chill as he realized what this meant. If we activate the global transformation, every human on Earth will suddenly remember everything. Every person will become a warrior. "That's the plan," General Hayes said as she arrived at the facility. "But we need to be careful. The energy required to transform the entire human population will be enormous. We'll have to drain Earth's entire power grid." Captain Reynolds studied the facility's schematics. "It's not just about power. Once we activate the global transformation, there's no going back. Every human will change permanently." "What about the children?" Dr. Stone asked. "What will happen to them?" Jake thought about Amy and felt his anger growing stronger. "The children will become what they were always meant to be. They'll remember their true heritage and understand why we're fighting." The team worked for weeks to prepare the global transformation. They had to coordinate with power plants around the world, military bases, and secret government facilities. The operation had to be perfect because they would only get one chance. During this time, Jake began experiencing more vivid memories. He remembered the original war between the Terrans and the alien coalition. It had not been a war of conquest, but a war of survival. The aliens had attacked first, afraid that the Terrans would eventually dominate the galaxy. They were right to be afraid, Jake told the others. We weren't just better warriors. We were better at everything. Science, technology, art, philosophy. We were evolving faster than they could keep up. Colonel Carter nodded. That's why they didn't just defeat us. They exiled us and suppressed our genes. They wanted to make sure we could never challenge them again. The day of the global transformation arrived. Power stations around the world were ready to channel all their energy into the Antarctic facility. Military bases were prepared to handle the chaos that might follow. Governments had been quietly briefed about what was about to happen. Jake stood in the control room, his hand on the activation switch. Once I press this button, humanity will remember who we really are. We'll become the Terrans again, and the galaxy will never be the same. Dr. Stone checked his instruments one final time. All systems are ready. The transformation signal will reach every human on Earth within minutes. Are we sure about this? Captain Reynolds asked. 7 billion people are about to change forever. Jake thought about his daughter Amy, lying dead in the council chambers while aliens called her murder unfortunate. He thought about every human who had ever been treated as a second-class citizen by the galactic community. "They killed my daughter because they thought we were weak," he said. "They thought we were just primitive newcomers who could be bullied and ignored. It's time to show them who we really are." He pressed the button. Energy surged through the facility and into transmitters hidden around the world. The transformation signal spread across the Earth like a wave, reaching every human simultaneously. In New York, a businessman suddenly remembered how to build faster-than-light engines. In Tokyo, a teacher found herself understanding the weaknesses of Centaurian battle formations. In London, a child began drawing blueprints for weapons that had destroyed alien fleets thousands of years ago. The transformation was not violent or painful for most people. It was more like waking up from a long dream. Humans around the world suddenly understood that they had been living as prisoners of their own biology. Jake felt the collective consciousness awakening. Every human on Earth was now connected to the same vast network of knowledge and memory. They could share thoughts, coordinate actions, and plan strategies as a single unified species. "It's working," Dr. Stone said, watching the global readings. "The transformation is complete. Every human on Earth has now become a Terran." Captain Reynolds was monitoring communications around the world. "The reaction is interesting. Most people are angry, not scared. They're angry that they've been deceived for so long." "Good," Jake said. "Anger is useful. We're going to need it for what comes next." Colonel Carter was already planning the next phase. The aliens will have detected the energy surge. They'll know something has changed. They'll probably send a fleet to investigate. Jake smiled coldly. Let them come. They remember the old Terrans, the ones who accepted exile to avoid more war. They've never met the new Terrans, the ones who've spent 4,000 years learning. Patience. The global transformation was complete, but the real work was just beginning. 7 billion humans had just remembered that they were the descendants of the galaxy's most dangerous warrior race. And they all had the same enemy, the aliens who had murdered a 12-year-old girl named Amy Morrison. The Terrans were awake, and they were ready for war. The transformation changed everything in just one day. Around the world, humans were discovering abilities they never knew they had. In hospitals, doctors suddenly understood alien biology well enough to create deadly poisons. In schools, children were drawing star maps of worlds they had never seen. In factories, workers were building weapons from ancient Terran designs. Jake Morrison stood in the command center that had been built inside the Antarctic facility. The room was filled with screens showing the entire Earth and the space around it. Every human on the planet was now connected to the same network of knowledge and memory. "The alien fleet is 3 days away," Captain Lisa Reynolds reported. She was now commanding Earth's space defense forces. 47 ships from different species. "They're coming to investigate the energy surge." Colonel Ben Carter studied the alien fleet composition. "They're not coming to negotiate. This is a military force designed to destroy Earth if necessary." Jake felt no fear as he looked at the approaching fleet. The old Jake Morrison would have been terrified. The new Jake, with 4,000 years of Terran military knowledge, saw only targets. "They think they're coming to fight the same humans they've been controlling," he said. "They don't realize they're about to face the Terrans." Dr. Richard Stone was monitoring the global transformation effects. "The collective consciousness is stabilizing. Every human can now access the full range of Terran abilities. We're not just individuals anymore. We're a unified species." Around the world, humans were building things that should have been impossible. In Detroit, car factories were now producing spacecraft that could travel faster than light. In Silicon Valley, computer programmers were creating artificial intelligences that could predict alien behavior. In Texas, Oil refineries were manufacturing fuel that could power weapons capable of destroying entire planets. But the most important work was happening in secret. Military facilities. Teams of transformed humans were building the weapons and ships they would need for the war that was coming. Jake received a message from Commander Alex Turner, who was leading a special operations team. We've identified the location of High Counselor Vex Thara. He's on the Zephyrian homeworld, in the capital city. How well defended is he? Jake asked. Very well defended by normal standards, Turner replied. But we're not normal anymore. I have a team of 12 Terrans who can infiltrate the planet and reach him. Jake thought about his daughter Amy, killed by Vex Thara energy weapon. The alien had murdered a child and then claimed it was justified. Now it was time for justice. Do it, Jake ordered. But make sure he knows why he's dying. Make sure he understands that this is payment for Amy Morrison. While Turner's team prepared for their mission, other Terran forces were getting ready for larger operations. The alien fleet approaching Earth was just the beginning. The real war would be fought across the entire galaxy. Captain Reynolds had discovered something important about the approaching alien fleet. They're using the same formations they used 4,000 years ago. They haven't learned anything new since the Terrans were exiled. That's because they didn't need to, Colonel Carter explained. They've been the dominant species for so long that they stopped improving. They got lazy and comfortable. Jake smiled grimly. The Terrans have been studying and planning for 4,000 years. Even with our genes suppressed, we never stopped thinking about war. We just didn't realize it. The first strike came not from the alien fleet, but from the Terrans themselves. Commander Turner's team had reached the Zephyrian homeworld using technology that made their ship invisible to alien sensors. Turner and his team materialized inside Vex Thara's private residence using matter, transporters that had been hidden in Terran genetic memory. The alien guards never knew what hit them. High Counselor Vex Thara was in his study when the Terrans appeared. He was a tall, thin creature with red skin and yellow eyes. When he saw the human soldiers, he reached for his weapon. I wouldn't do that, Turner said calmly. We're not here to fight you. We're here to execute you. Vex Thara's eyes widened as he realized these were not ordinary humans. You're supposed to be weak, he said. You're supposed to be controlled. We were, Turner replied. But you made a mistake. You killed a child named Amy Morrison. Her father decided it was time for humanity to remember who we really are. The execution was quick and clean. Vex Thara died knowing that his murder of Amy Morrison had awakened something terrible. Turner's team left a message written in Terran symbols, payment for the child. Similar operations were happening across the galaxy. Every alien who had been present when Amy was killed, every official who had called her death unfortunate, every leader who had supported the decision to ignore the murder, all of them died. Within hours of each other, the aliens finally realized they were not dealing with the same humans they had been controlling. These were Terrans, and they were systematically hunting down everyone responsible for Amy Morrison's death. The alien fleet arrived at Earth 3 days later, but they found something they were not expecting. Instead of a defenseless planet, they found a world protected by weapons and ships that were far more advanced than anything they had ever seen. Jake Morrison was aboard the flagship Earth's Retribution, commanding the human fleet. The ship was built using ancient Terran designs, but with improvements that came from 4,000 years of planning and preparation. Alien fleet, this is Jake Morrison of the Terran Empire, he broadcast to the approaching ships. You have come to the wrong system at the wrong time. The alien commander, Chancellor Kremos of the Alterians, responded with confusion. There is no Terran Empire. The Terrans were exiled 4,000 years ago. The exile is over, Jake replied. We have returned to claim what is ours. The alien fleet attacked first, just as Jake had expected. The Altarians were cautious, but predictable. They used the same battle formations they had used in the ancient war, never realizing that the Terrans had been studying those formations for thousands of years. The battle was over in minutes. The alien ships were destroyed so quickly that they barely had time to send distress signals. Advanced Terran weapons cut through their defenses like paper. Jake watched the alien fleet burn and felt no satisfaction. This was not about victory or conquest. This was about justice for his daughter and for every human who had been treated as less than equal. "Sir," Captain Reynolds reported, "we're receiving surrender requests from 17 different alien worlds. They want to negotiate." "There will be no negotiations," Jake said. "They had their chance to treat us with respect. They chose to murder children instead." The news of the alien fleet's destruction spread quickly through the galaxy. The other species realized that the humans were no longer the weak, controlled species they had been dealing with. The Terrans had returned, and they were more dangerous than ever. Jake opened a communication channel to the entire galaxy. His message was simple and direct. "This is Jake Morrison, War Chief of the Terran Empire. My daughter Amy Morrison was murdered by your Galactic Council. You called it justified. Now you will learn the price of killing a Terran child." The message was broadcast in every alien language simultaneously. Every species in the galaxy heard it and understood that their comfortable world was about to change forever. The hunt had begun. The Terrans were no longer hiding on Earth, pretending to be weak. They were spreading across the galaxy, looking for everyone who had supported or ignored Amy Morrison's murder. And they would not stop until justice was served. Jake Morrison held his daughter's ashes and looked out at the stars. "I'm coming for all of them, Amy," he whispered. "Every single one." The galaxy was about to learn why the Terrans had been feared and exiled 4,000 years ago. And this time, there would be no mercy. The war lasted exactly 100 days. It was not really a war at all, but a systematic demonstration of Terran superiority. One by one, the alien species that had controlled the galaxy for 4,000 years were forced to surrender. Morrison stood in the ruins of the old Galactic Council chambers on Kepler Prime Station. The same room where his daughter Amy had been murdered was now his command center. The irony was not lost on him. Captain Lisa Reynolds entered the chamber, carrying a datapad. "The last holdout worlds have surrendered," she reported. "The Centaurian Federation just sent their formal capitulation." Jake nodded without emotion. The Centaurians had been the last to give up, hoping their musical voices and peaceful reputation would save them. But the Terrans remembered that the Centaurians had also voted to ignore Amy's death. "What about the Altarians?" Jake asked. "Chancellor Kremos died by suicide 3 days ago," Reynolds replied. "He left a message saying he preferred death to living under Terran rule." Jake felt no satisfaction at the news. The aliens were finally understanding what they had unleashed when they killed his daughter. But it was too late for regrets. Colonel Ben Carter arrived with the final casualty reports. Total alien military losses: 2.3 million personnel across all species. Total Terran losses: 847 killed, 2,156 wounded. The numbers told the story. The Terrans had not just won the war, they had dominated it completely. 4,000 years of suppressed evolution had made them far superior to the aliens who had exiled them. Dr. Richard Stone was studying the alien surrender documents. "They're offering us anything we want," he said. "Territory, resources, technology, even complete political control. They're terrified of us." "They should be," Jake replied. "They created us. They forced us to evolve in hiding. For 4,000 years, they made us better than they ever imagined possible. The transformation of human society was complete. Every person on Earth now had access to the collective Terran consciousness. They could share knowledge instantly, coordinate actions across the entire planet, and work together as a single unified species. Children who had been playing with toys a month ago were now designing spacecraft. Teachers were developing new theories of physics. Farmers were creating agricultural techniques that could feed entire worlds. The human potential that had been suppressed for millennia was finally free. Jake received a message from Commander Alex Turner, who was now administering the occupied Zephyrian worlds. The Zephyrian population is requesting permission to emigrate to other systems. They don't want to live under Terran rule. Denied, Jake replied immediately. They stayed silent when their leader murdered my daughter. They can live with the consequences of their cowardice. The new galactic order was taking shape quickly. The Terrans had not come to destroy the alien species, but to rule them. Every world that had been part of the old Galactic Council was now part of the Terran Empire. General Patricia Hayes arrived at the station with the final reorganization plans. We've divided the galaxy into 12 sectors, she explained. Each sector will be governed by a Terran administrator with full authority over all alien populations. The plan was efficient and ruthless. The aliens would be allowed to live, but they would never again have the power to harm humans. Their militaries had been dissolved, their governments replaced, their technologies confiscated. Jake walked to the exact spot where Amy had died. The bloodstains had been cleaned away, but he could still see her in his memory. Her bright green eyes, her curious questions, her innocent trust in the adult world that had failed her. "Sir," Captain Reynolds said quietly, "there's something else. We've discovered that the genetic suppressors weren't just in human DNA. The aliens have been using them on other species too." Jake turned to face her. "What do you mean?" "The Klaxons in the outer rim, the Vorthen in the spiral arm, even some of the smaller species in Council space. They've all been genetically modified to be less intelligent and less aggressive than they should be." The revelation was stunning. The aliens had not just suppressed humanity. They had been controlling the evolution of multiple species to maintain their own dominance. "How many species were affected?" Jake asked. "At least 23. That we've identified so far," Reynolds replied. "And some of them are asking us to remove their genetic suppressors too." Jake considered this carefully. The Terrans now had the power to awaken other species to their true potential, but they also had the power to keep them suppressed. "We'll evaluate each species individually," he decided. "Those who supported the Council's decision about Amy will remain suppressed. Those who opposed it or remained neutral will be given the choice." Dr. Stone was monitoring the transformation of human colonies throughout the galaxy. The humans on the outer worlds are adapting quickly to their new abilities. Colony productivity has increased by 400% in the past month. The success was not just military or economic. The Terrans were rebuilding civilization according to their own vision. Art, literature, music, and philosophy were all being transformed by the collective consciousness. Jake received a communication from Earth. President Linda Carter was calling from the White House. "Jake, how are you holding up?" she asked. "I'm fine," he replied. "The war is over. The aliens have surrendered. Amy's death has been avenged. And what happens now?" The president asked. Jake looked around the council chambers that had become his throne room. "Now we build the galaxy that Amy should have grown up in. A galaxy where human children are safe. A galaxy where we are never again treated as second-class citizens." The transformation was irreversible. The Terrans had awakened to their true nature and would never again accept being controlled or suppressed. The galaxy would be ruled by the species that had been exiled 4,000 years ago. Jake opened a communication channel to every world in the galaxy. His message was broadcast to billions of beings across hundreds of species. "This is Jake Morrison, Emperor of the Terran Empire," he began. "100 days ago, you murdered my daughter Amy Morrison in these very chambers. You called it justified. You called it unfortunate. You voted to ignore her death." He paused, letting the words sink in across the galaxy. "Today, your governments no longer exist. Your militaries have been disbanded. Your worlds are now part of the Terran Empire. This is the price of killing a human child." The message was clear and final. The age of alien dominance was over. The Terrans had returned to reclaim their place as the galaxy's ruling species. Jake placed Amy's ashes on the desk where the old Galactic Council had once made their decisions. "I kept my promise, sweetheart," he whispered. "They'll never hurt another human child again." Outside the station, Terran ships patrolled the space lanes. On every world, Terran administrators were establishing the new order. In schools across the galaxy, alien children were learning to speak Terran as their primary language. The species that had once feared the Terrans enough to exile them had created something far more dangerous than what they had originally faced. They had forced humanity to evolve in secret for 4,000 years, and now they would live under the rule of their own creation. Jake Morrison, the diplomat who had once sought peace, was now the emperor of the galaxy. His daughter's death had awakened a sleeping giant that would never again be put to rest. The stars themselves seemed to shine differently now, as if acknowledging the new reality. The children of Terra had come home, and the galaxy would never be the same again. Amy Morrison's murder had been avenged, but more than that, it had transformed the entire universe. The Terrans ruled the stars once more, and they would make sure that no species would ever again dare to harm their children. New galactic order was complete, and it would last for 10,000 years.